been a while since I've sat in front of a camera. When was my last video? 3 months ago. So my last video was filmed at least 4 months ago. I'd like to say I'm back, but whether or not I stay and make continuous videos is another story. Anyway, hi guys, I am back with another video. This is going to be a pregnancy related video because I've announced that I'm pregnant. I'm currently 17 weeks and 4 days pregnant. So this is coming a bit late, but I wanted to give you guys the update and the rundown of my first trimester of my pregnancy, and to just kind of let you know what symptoms I have, how I was feeling, and just everything first trimester. So on my phone, I started writing down my symptoms from conception. So what happened was, because we were trying to fall pregnant, I was tracking ovulation. So I knew in this particular cycle, for the first time ever, I caught my ovulation date, and hence I know my conception date. So from conception, or maybe the day or two after conception, I had symptoms. Even though I didn't want to think of them as pregnancy symptoms, just because I didn't want to get my hopes up too high, but I definitely had symptoms from week 2 of my pregnancy, which conception happens at 2 weeks pregnant. So the first thing I want to go through is all my symptoms that I had in the first trimester. So I'm on my phone, I do apologize. So from weeks 2 to 4, I had on and off nausea. So it wasn't all day, it wasn't constant, but every now and then I'd be hit with this nauseous feeling. I had a lot of dizziness. I had very sore and tender boobs, which is one of the biggest early symptoms in pregnancy. And I had it like a few days after conception. I was getting very, very tired, but I was really struggling to sleep. And I think that was another major sign that I was pregnant for me, because I do get tired and I am just a tired person in general, but this was a whole new level of feeling tired. I was taking naps during the day, and I still am. I started getting very emotional. I was crying when there was no need to be crying. Mostly it was with movies at this point in time. It wasn't with like anything else random, or it was just movies that I was crying during that made no sense for me to be crying. I had tummy crampings, and this is where it got confusing, because cramping is a symptom for your period. So I was thinking maybe I'm getting my period, but turns out I was having implantation cramps. And then I started having very slight cravings for salty things. And then weeks 4 to 6, so this is when I found out I was pregnant. I found out I was pregnant at 4 weeks, I think. So I knew I was pregnant then, and I think this is when my symptoms went into overdrive, because I knew I was pregnant. I had a lot of cramping at this period in time. It wasn't painful, but it was a lot, and it was for long lengths of time that the cramps would be happening. I had my first aversion with food. I had a major curry aversion. It was actually really funny. I went and saw my friend who's my neighbor. Someone had cooked buttered chicken and I could smell it, and the whole time I was there I felt sick. Anytime I look at it as well, I feel sick. So it's not just my smell, it's the sight of it too. So I could be sent a photo of someone's curry and I'll feel sick. My salty cravings continued. I wanted chips in the air fryer. At this point in time, my eating got really bad and I started actually losing weight. But I also wanted spaghetti and lasagna. My nausea was still very on and off. It wasn't all day, every day, but it was definitely coming and going and starting to become a big part of my life, and it was affecting my eating quite a lot. Week 6 to 8, I got my very first sweet craving. I started craving jam on toast. This is when constant nausea hit and it didn't go away. From the second I woke up to the second I fell asleep, I was feeling nauseous. I started having to take anti-nausea tablets, which would subside the feeling, but it wouldn't make it go away. And this is also when I really stopped eating, and I actually lost 5 kilos instead of putting on a little bit of weight. By the end of week 7, I started having a craving for some fruit, which was really good for me. I needed to eat some fruit. I was loving grapes and apples until apples started making me feel more hungry, which was doing the opposite of what I needed it to do. But yeah, grapes were my best friend. I was like constantly asking Sean when I was laying in bed, can you go get me grapes? And he'd bring me this little bowl of grapes. And that was all I could eat. I'd come home from work and my dinner would be a small bowl of grapes because that's all I could manage to get down. So I also then worked out that my nausea was related to feeling hungry, which if you've been pregnant, a lot of people say this, and a lot of people find this very frustrating because it's hard to eat when you're feeling nauseous. But the more hungry you get, the more nauseous you feel, which was 100% happening to me. I wasn't eating anything, so I was feeling really, really nauseous. But I worked out that I needed to stay on top of that hunger to avoid the really bad nausea where I'd be sitting back, rocking back and forth and crying because I really felt like I was going to be sick. So that just meant having little bits of food, like they say. I couldn't do dry crackers. Everyone's like, oh, have dry crackers if you're pregnant. It helps with the nausea. I couldn't look at them. I couldn't touch them. I couldn't do dry crackers. So that's when grapes was really handy because it would fill me up enough. I think I was into cookies at one point. Like I really was surviving off cookies, but now I can't eat cookies. Okay, weeks 8 to 10. I still had really bad nausea. That wasn't going anywhere. I think I started crying a lot more with it and getting really upset when I couldn't eat. This is when I could no longer have heavy foods, so the lasagna and spaghetti went out the door. Anything carb heavy went out the door, and I could only have small amounts. I think I was living off toast at this point in time. I was also really loving peanut butter on white bread, I think at this point, and I think it was bread, not toast. So then weeks 10 to 12, I only have one dot point because nothing else changed, but my nausea was at its worst. That was the worst period of time. I had to stop working because I constantly felt like I was going to be sick. I couldn't really leave my bed. I couldn't do anything because I just felt so sick. And that was for a long time. And I did not feel like myself at all. I always thought in my head that I wasn't going to let nausea get the best of me or have a huge impact on my life. But for those 2 weeks, it really did. And I couldn't go out. I think I had a friend over. I think I had Lizzie over in this time frame. And I struggled sitting there and talking to her because of the nausea being so bad. And then weeks 13 to 15, which kind of goes into trimester 2, but I've got a note on it. I started having some headaches that would start in the afternoon and go through to the evening. Luckily, I'm not having those anymore, but they would just be pounding in my head, and it would just make me feel a bit gross, but it wasn't stopping me from doing anything. And my appetite finally came back and I was able to start eating, which was a blessing because boy did I need to start eating. Okay, so that was all my signs and symptoms and weird things from the first trimester. The other thing I wanted to talk about, which I've already kind of touched on, was my feelings during the first trimester. Obviously, when we found out, I was really, really excited and my symptoms weren't that strong or apparent, and it was more about the excitement of being pregnant. This quickly changed. Don't get me wrong, the whole time I've been pregnant, I have been really happy and excited, but it's been clouded by this sort of, I don't know the word for it. I don't want to say depression because I wouldn't say it was that bad, but I definitely hit, not rock bottom. If this is rock bottom, I hit the next level of bottom in that I was not feeling myself at all, and I was telling myself that I didn't want to be pregnant because how much I was struggling with. I 100% want the baby and I 100% want to be pregnant, but in my head I was telling myself, why did I want this? Why do I want to be pregnant if I'm gonna feel like crap? And I said to Sean, I'm like, I don't think I ever want to go through this again. I don't want to have more kids. I even asked him, I'm like, are you going to be happy with one kid? Because I don't want to do this again. I kept a lot of it in for quite a while when I should have spoken to someone about it, and I eventually did. I spoke to Cara, who's Sean's sister, also my best friend, also pregnant. And I spoke to her about how I was feeling, and she told me that it was completely normal. And looking back, that was only a few weeks ago, but now I am so much better. I am so much happier. And I think the reason I struggled with it so much is because I don't cope with feeling sick. I have a phobia of vomiting, and a lot of people can vouch for me that if I hear someone gagging, if someone tells me that they feel like they're going to be sick, I remove myself or I go into a panic attack, anything like that. So feeling that myself and feeling that nausea up here was so strong that I was being sent into panic attacks, and I was not coping with it at all. This whole time I've not been physically sick once. I've had a lot of close calls, times when I definitely should have and needed to, but I stopped myself from because of my fear. I think a lot of that self-pity and misery came from feeling nauseous, and it came from that mentality of being scared of it and that mentality of it being worse than it actually was. A lot of times Sean and I would say to each other that I was working it up in my head and I was making it seem worse than it needed to be, and that I was actually fine. If I just distracted myself, I would be fine. Because in reality, I didn't have it that bad. There are other people that I know that have had a much worse pregnancy start than what I was having, yet they were coping better than I was. But moving on from that, I'm definitely a lot better now. I'm excited. I've started buying a few things. I've set up the nursery, which is the room I'm currently sitting on. Like, this is my rocking chair that I'm going to sit on and do my feeds. There's a lot of things that I'm looking forward to now, and I'm still getting a little bit of nausea here and there, and I'm getting my energy back, and I think I'm going to go crazy soon wanting to buy baby stuff. That has been my first trimester. It wasn't fun, but I'm excited for the rest of this pregnancy now that that's over. I don't even have a bump to show you guys. But as soon as I do get a bump, hopefully I'll start being able to share that. We do find out the gender in less than a month now. So we're really excited for that. We're having a gender reveal and a joint baby shower. I think I'm going to end the video here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Feel free to comment any questions. I do plan on doing some sort of question and answer video about the pregnancy so far and our thoughts and plans for the baby, that kind of stuff. But otherwise, I'm going to leave it here. I hope you all have an amazing day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you when I see you.